we're gonna do three different things. So we're gonna start off with a very interesting video to illustrate the point we're gonna have today. Today we're gonna do some work on Greek and Roman art. After that, we're gonna have a random group come up and talk to each other. It's not a presentation per se. We call it a conversatorio, which is basically an opportunity to talk to each other about the work that you uploaded into Blackboard last week. So we're gonna continue with that, and there's gonna be more or less 30 or 40 minutes or so. After that, we're gonna do working groups like we did last time with you guys working together with the people that you worked with last week. Today we have made sure that we dedicate sufficient time so you can finish the activity and you can upload it before the session ends. I already opened the forum. The other one I had to open it 3 times because we definitely had issues with the timing. And after we do the activity, for the first time today, we're gonna try to get another group to come up front at the end of the session and talk about what you've learned today in regards to the topic. So be ready because we're gonna call any group at the end. We're gonna call any group at the beginning and then another group at the end. So we're gonna have 2 opportunities for you to talk after today. The dynamic is going to be that only the group that presents does so based on the work that was done on that in any given day, okay? And it will continue to be random. You know, we'll select any group to come up and talk, and then we will assign participation based on your contribution to this conversation, which will basically talk to each other in a very informal environment, which is the plan anyhow. All right, so we're gonna start off with today's session. Welcome again, and thank you for coming. Although you don't have a choice, right?
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. Hello, how are you? Good evening. Well, first of all, these sessions are planned with me and Bernal. I mean, Bernal's help is actually essential to what we're doing here, so it's more a collaborative thing. Now, the idea of the exercises we're going to do after the presentation is to get close to certain artworks. In this case, we're going to study a couple of artworks from the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans. And the idea is to ask you several different questions, as we did last week, in order for you to analyze and to watch carefully to the artwork, to the details, to the different things, in order to really appreciate what these things are about. Okay, but we're going to start today with a brief presentation, main basic characteristics of what Greek and Roman art is. And we're going to start by watching a video. It's kind of a cartoon, but it's very illustrative, and I think it points out very well the main characteristics of the periods we're going to talk about today. We're talking about art today. And the ideas developed during the Greek period, which were abandoned during some time during the Middle Ages, were rediscovered during the Renaissance, as we're going to see in other classes, in other lessons. And they are the basis of all the Western art we have today. Now, the Greeks, which had the most glorious period during the 5th or 6th century before Christ, they planted the seed for some of the most important artistic ideals. The human proportion, you saw that about the heads that should be in a body, first 6, 6.5, and then 8. The movement, before that, the Egyptian art was very static. The physical action also, two or more different figures interacting in a work, and the human ideal of beauty and emotion. For the Greeks, it was very important. The human body was beautiful, and it was supposed to be reproducing and showed in that way. Remember, like I told you last time, we are talking before Christ, so there's no religion, there's no moral Christianity, and the morals were very different back then. Nudity was not seen as a bad thing, okay? It was very common. Most of the original art made by the Greeks is lost, unfortunately. It was destroyed, or it was robbed, and then it was lost. So there's not a lot of original art, especially in sculptures and in paintings. There's a lot of ceramics, there's a lot of pottery, but we don't have a lot of original statues, for instance. All that we have, which is very nice also, are copies made by the Romans. In this case, this one, which is called the Charioteers of Delphi, this is an original one from the times of the Greek. but as you can see, it's only part of the sculpture. It was supposed to be a whole complex in which you could see the horses and the chariot and everything. All that's left is the driver with las riendas, I don't know, in his hands. Greek art was exhibited in the air. It was for everybody to appreciate, because for the Greeks, taking the art with them after they die was not important. For the Egyptians, it was everything about that. You need to take everything with you in order to have a happy afterlife. The Greeks didn't have this belief, so they thought that the art should be in the outdoors for everybody to enjoy. Now, like I told you, the pottery was the prevalent art during a lot of time, and it also had practical purposes. There's a lot of original Greek art that survived, and you can see in the museums, there's a lot of different styles and forms. This is just an example. And the Greek figure is also, of course, very important. The Greek art experience is about movement and muscles and bones. It's about creating an organic form of the human being. For them, it was very important to be very realistic about how the human figure was, but they also had an ideal of beauty. So they depict people as they should look, not as they actually look. So all the statues and portraits we have from Pericles and Plato and all of these guys are usually idealized. They are not necessarily a portrait exactly as how they looked. They also developed this kind of, as we saw in the video, this kind of sculptures named as the kuros and the kore. Kuros are the male, kore are the woman, in which they are all depicted in this way, very rigid, even though there's not a lot of movement because they look kind of still, there's a sensation that they're about to move, about to do something. And that's the idea of these very nice sculptures, which there's a lot of them in this case in the museums. Then they did this kind of sculptures. We have a lot of movement, like this Apollo's temple in Olympia, which is one of the most impressive statues ever made by the Greeks. Originally, as most of Greek art, it was colored. Today we have only the color of the marble in which it was done, but back then the Greeks actually painted in very vivid, very lively colors, and they were trying to make it look as natural, as realistic as possible. Of course, because of logical reasons, the paint has worn out, and we have only the original materials in which they were built. This is another very good example of Greek sculpture. This is a statue which was found in a boat underwater. It could either be Zeus, the king of the gods, or it could be Poseidon, the king of the seas, of the oceans. It's in natural size, it's made in bronze, and it's in the National Museum in Athens. Very famous, the Discobolus, that discus thrower, which is the original one was made by an artist named Miron. This is a Roman copy. There's several Roman copies. The original is lost. It's about the sport of throwing the discus, which was part of the ancient Olympic Games, which, by the way, another thing that the Greeks gave us was the invention of the Olympic Games, which were held every 4 years in the city of Olympia, from the year 700 before Christ, more or less. And, of course, the Parthenon, which is one of the most impressive architectural achievements of the Greeks, is full of sculptures made by Phidias. This is a frieze, it's called a frieze, which surrounds the whole Parthenon. Today it's not in the better shape possible, but it was, according to experts, very, very marvelous. It had inside a very big statue of Athena, who was the goddess of the city of Athens. That's why Athens is called Athens. It was founded in honor of the god of wisdom, Athena. This is a depiction of how it may have looked like back then. And a very, very important piece of this time is the Nike. Nike is the goddess of victory, which is also called Nike. And that's why the sports brand, the tennis and everything you see everywhere, which is called Nike, it's named after the goddess of victory, the Greek goddess of victory. This is our original sculptures, but unfortunately, they are incomplete. Lysippus was another very important sculpture. Most of his work is in the British Museum, and most of them are copies also. And we have Praxiteles, which created things like this, Hermes and Dionysius. Also, it's a copy of the original. And the other Nike statue, which is in the Louvre Museum in Paris. Now, during the Hellenistic period, which is after Alexander the Great died, this is the most important sculpture you're going to make. This is one of the options we're going to have today for do some work. Okay, it's called Laocoon and his son, and it's supposed to be the maximum expression of man's destiny against the arbitrariness of the gods. This is a detail of the face. As you can see, there's a lot of expression, there's a lot of movement. It's very detailed, it's very well achieved, very well accomplished. I'm sorry, this is the same one. And now in Roman art is, even though a lot of people think that Roman art is nothing else but copying the Greek art, which is partly true, but actually the Roman art is a conjunction of three different schools, which are the Egyptian art, the Etruscan art, and the Greek art. And they excelled on some things. For instance, these cameos, in Spanish camafeos, in which you can see there, even though there's a lot of Greek influence, it's actually made by the Romans, and it's a very, very beautiful piece. Also, the Romans, they achieved a lot in architecture. They invented the concrete, and they developed the arch and the dome. So a lot of the figures we use today in architecture, we have thanks to the Romans. Romans liked very much during a long time of the empire that realistic kind of art. So they try to depict people as they actually look. So the portraits we see of the Romans, of Julius Caesar, of Augustus, of Pompey, and all of those, the politicians of the early Roman Empire are pretty accurate, supposedly. Afterwards, at the end of the empire, they're going to adopt a more idealistic style as the Greeks did. This is a relief, a procession, which you can see they were very good at sculpting also. And this is one of the most important pieces of Roman art, which is the Trajan's column. It's very descriptive, it's narrative art, because it talks about the Roman emperor's Trajan, the Roman emperor's victory against the Dacians in the Dacian war. So it's the whole column with all the story of the war, which is very detailed, and it's very, very intrinsic, very complicated narrative. These are some details, as you can see. Thanks to this kind of art, we know a lot about the Romans. We know a lot of how he dressed, what the weapons were, what the techniques in war were, how the buildings were done, and a lot of things, because these are some kind of historical documents. This is another part of the column, of Trajan's column. And have you ever heard, salud, have you ever heard about Pompey and Herculano? Never? Pompeia, Herculano? No idea. Well, these were two Roman cities which were buried by the eruption of a volcano known as the Vesuvius, which exists in the city of Naples. But because they were completely buried by the eruption, they were conserved as the day in which the eruption occurred. So when they were discovered a lot of years later, and they took away all the debris, they found out two complete cities in almost pristine condition of how the Romans lived, how their homes were, the graffiti they wrote in the walls, and the art they painted in their homes, in which they used. And this is a perfect example of Roman art. And this is another thing we're going to use today in our exercises. These are called the Villa of the Mysteries. That's the name the archaeologists gave to the villa. And as you can see, it's in very, very good condition, taking account that it's 2,000 years old. And it's the colors, the brushes, the strokes, everything they use is very, very nice, as is this portrait. These were all adorning in the homes of the villas in which the Romans lived. And finally, in the end of the Roman Empire, there's going to be a lot of Christian influence, because Christianity was developed at the end of the Roman Empire, when the Emperor Constantine made Christianism the religion, when made it a legal religion of the empire, so Christianity began to grow, and the values and the morals of Christianity began to impose, and so the art began to change, and it became more obscure, if you want, more abstract, and eventually they started treating pagan themes, no more gods, no more mythology, no more Greek ideas, and they began to use different kinds of Christian ideas, and that will take us into the Middle Ages, okay? So this has been a fast tour, a fast explanation of the basics of the Greek art and the Roman art. Do you have any questions so far? Any comments you'd like to do? Everything is crystal clear up to now. Good. Now we're gonna start then, Bernal, the first exercise in which you have to work in groups again, as we did last week. I'm sorry. We're gonna start with the groups of the last week's exercise. Okay, so we're gonna choose one group randomly, which the idea is for them to come here and we'll have a little conversation related to the exercise and the painting about Caravaggio, right? Let's talk about the composition first. Okay. Who's chewing gum? First of all, what's the name of this painting? Anybody? Almost. Did you turn it on?
The Supper of Emmaus.
At Emmaus.
At Emmaus.
Okay, who painted it? Who created it? Caravaggio. Okay? It's better if you use the microphone. Okay, it's called the Supper at Emmaus, or at Emmaus, and it was painted by Michelangelo Caravaggio, an Italian painter. In what year was it painted? Anybody? Which year was it painted? 1601, thank you. Okay? So this is from the Baroque period. Now, tell me something about the composition. Tell me about the subjects, about the lines, about the colors. What did you find out about this painting? Okay, come on. Where does the artist live? I mean, if you are there watching the painting, okay, this is the painting, where is he intending you to look at? Silence, please.
Maybe, all right. Maybe to the table and the fruits, because the contrast of the colors goes to the table. I think it's more like a clean color. I think.
I'm sorry?
It's like the white is more.
That's very bright. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of light there. There's a lot of white, which your vision goes directly to that point. But there's a figure in the painting which is more important than the other ones. Which one is it? Would you please, in the audience, will you please pay attention? Thank you. Yes. Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's correct. Jesus is the one in the center. Did everybody got that? Because last time there were a lot of you who were kind of confused with this. This is about Jesus. Okay, tell me about this subject matter. What's going on in here?
They are like talking in the table, and it seems like they are like discussing something because he seems like kind of upset about something.
Who looks upset?
Jesus, because of his arm that is like pointing to someone. And also the man to his left, he's like discussing something with him or telling him something. He seems like shouting or, I don't know, upset.
You're close. Did you make any investigation on what's the subject matter of this painting?
Okay, the main story here is that after Jesus died, some of the followers of him, the apostles, went to Emmaus, on the way to Emmaus, and they were talking about the situation that now they don't have someone that leads them. So when they get there, somebody invites them to have a dinner at their house. And when they were at the house having dinner, Jesus started making the blessing of the food. Thank you. And this is, I think, where they realized that the person that they were talking to was Jesus.
In fact, this is precisely the moment in which Jesus is telling them that he is Jesus Christ. He is his master. He's the one with whom they have been doing a lot of things in the very recent times. Now, the idea was for them not to recognize him. That's why this Jesus has no beard. Okay? And that's why he talked with them for a while and they did not recognize him. This is exactly the moment in which they realize that they are talking to Jesus. And that's the reaction you see in all of them. Could we turn off these lights now to see that? No? Okay, well. Anyway, the idea here is that this guy over here, the one with the kind of cap, he's the waiter. Okay? He's the one serving them, and he's also got into the conversation. The other guys are the apostles, which of course in this moment they are reacting to the news that Jesus came from the dead, and he's having dinner with them. They are of course very surprised. This guy over here is almost leaping out of his chair, right? Now, what can you tell me about the food in the table? Is there anything particular in there? Well, I know you cannot see this, but the idea is while you're doing the exercise to look at those details. If you don't see anything special, you should make a little research on the web and to see what you can find. Now, Caravaggio was a lover of realism. He liked to do things as perfectly as he could. And so he painted the fruit, even if it was rotten he'll paint it and depict it like that. And that's part of what you see in the painting. Now, can you tell me anything else about the position in which all of them are? Is there anything special that you can see in this kind of arrangement? How he put it, the different forms, the different figures? Anybody in the audience? Yes. Yes, actually they are. But there is also an open space, right? Caravaggio is inviting you to be part of the conversation. Actually, there's a space over there, right? In which you are being invited to take a chair and sit with them. That's the idea. It's opening the space of the painting. It's not blocking the view. There's no barrier between the viewer, the spectator, and the work of art. Okay? Now, tell me something about the lines. Where are all the lines going to?
In fact, all the lines is focused in Jesus and the bread, so maybe like a principal person. It's like a principal person in all the picture of or everything, and so make a special part in I see in the bread. It's like a principal in the lights in this moment. It's so very clear lights and make so like relax when you see the picture.
Okay, there's two things here. All the lines create a focus point on the central figure, right? All the lines of the perspective they convey in the center. They put your view, your eyesight directly into Jesus. And now you were talking also about the colors, right? What kind of colors does he use? Does he use a lot of shadows? Well,
Yes, in first, main color for himself is like white and red, and I don't know what is the color of the bread, but is combined like a brown and white, and for make this kind of color. But principal for me is white.
how would you describe these colors to a blind person?
For the blind person,
Yes. Anybody? How would you describe the colors to a blind person? You're right. They are warm colors. Okay? I mean, of course you cannot describe a color, but there are ways around. You can tell try to explain. I mean, even there's an exercise. I could tell you, how would you describe this painting to a blind person? Yes. Yes, depending on which colors you use in the palette, those, you could say those, you can say those are warm colors or cold colors. Blue and green and yellow are, cold colors. These brownish colors, the tones he uses are warm colors, okay? But he uses also another technique in this painting, which is which one? Did you found out anything? Nothing whatsoever. He's famous for what? For doing what? Caravaggio. He's the master of what? Come on, guys, did you really make any research, any talking around this? The guide I gave you? Okay, there's a very big contrast in this painting. In where can you see the contrast? In which areas and which areas? Anybody? Where's the contrast? Yes? Chiaroscuro. Right, thank you. He liked to use very dark areas with very bright areas to make a very sharp, a very dramatic contrast. This technique is called chiaroscuro, and he was a master to use this, okay? Who else was a master in this? Leonardo, before him, okay? So, as you can see, the schools go from one artist to another. Very important, the scale. What's the size of this painting? Anybody, what's the size of this painting?
Well, we have the dimensions in general are 141 by 196.2.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea. To get acquaintance with a painting, it's very important to know the size of a painting because it's going to tell you a lot about the artist and a lot about the context in which it was created. To what was it meant, where was it meant to be, for instance? If it's a very big painting, well, it was not obviously not for the living room, right? But if it's a smaller painting, maybe it was painted because somebody wanted it in their homes. So you have to know the size of the painting, and that will also give you a very reasonable idea of how the picture may look like in real life. Where is it located?
London.
Where is it? London, thank you. So listen, guys, obviously there's a lack of preparation here, okay? The idea of this exercise is for you to discuss about the exercise, not to talk about other things or use your devices to visit other things in the internet. I'm giving you a lot of different questions in order for you to research about the painting, about the painter, about the context, and a lot of other things. In some cases, you won't even have to know anything about the painting. It's just about thinking, critical thinking, making assumptions. Try to go into the mind of the painter. Why did he paint this? If I ask you, for instance, what would you feel if you were sitting over there in that table at this moment? Anybody, tell me. If you were sitting here right in front of this guy, how do you feel? You're in there, how do you feel?
Well, when we were discussing this, we had two main discussions. The first one was knowing the context, that was the moment in which Jesus appears and everything that you already tell us, and somebody that doesn't know that explanation. Okay, so if we were the person that knows the context, maybe we can notice something really different. Okay, but if we don't know the context, we could feel or think that they are discussing about something probably serious in a table, in a dinner, but not a holy sin, right? Okay. So it could be really, really different if we know the context or if we doesn't know it.
Yeah, of course, that will make you reach different assumptions.
Yeah.
But let's say you just walk in this restaurant, in this bar, and this guy over there says, what's your name? Sorry?
Andres.
Andres, come here, sit with us. And he pulls a chair, and you sit over there, and suddenly a discussion, an argument erupts. And these guys began with all of these movements. How would you feel being in there at that moment? Would you be comfortable? Would you be uncomfortable? You just like to get the hell out of there? I mean,
Yeah. Probably it will be uncomfortable because they doesn't seem like happy or they feel uncomfortable with the conversation they are having. And probably it's not a conversation, probably it feels like a discussion.
yes, indeed, it is a discussion. Yes.
So it's not like a conversation in which if you are not part of it, you will feel comfortable.
Okay.
What do you think they're talking about? What's
Well-
the assumption based on the period and the painting? What do you think they're arguing with? What do you think is the point of contention?
Living the context or
Within the situation, what do you think what's your assumption about the topic of the conversation?
well, for me, the person living the context, okay, is okay. For me, the person at the center is the one that is trying to calm down everyone. This person at the left, he is the most excited about it, and he is kind of screaming. The other one at the right, he is just trying to put attention, and this person here at the left, he is going to make a commentary, okay, but he is first listening. So that's the scene I see.
Great. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. Don't worry about that. We're not looking for that. We're looking for you guys to try to think, to try to make arguments, to try to feel in some deeper way the artwork. That's the idea of this exercise. Now, for instance, I will say that this guy is definitively mad. I mean, he maybe is telling Jesus, why didn't you came before? Why did you left us? I mean, what are you doing? We've been looking for you. You promised you will come, and you're not here. That's what I think. But that's what you should try to reach, that kind of let the painting talk to you, okay? Or the sculpture, or whatever we're trying to analyze. But to do that, you have to do this seriously. You have to actually discuss about these things among yourselves. So we give you a guide with a lot of questions. That today's guide has even more questions. And the idea is not for you to answer literally every question, but to make a discussion around the painting and really, really try to get to understand a little bit more of the painting. Okay?
All right, guys, you're on the hook.
Thank you. Okay. Please take your seats. Okay, the instructions were, take a close look at the given artwork. Shh, silence, please. And make a mental inventory of what you see. List everything that is in front of you. Do not leave anything out. Discuss within your work group the assigned artwork and analyze it using the given questions as a guide. Use the questions that apply. Okay, the idea is for you guys to look at the picture, at the artwork or the sculpture, and talk about it, using the questions as a guide. As much as you can talk, as much things you can reach, as much feelings as you can share with us. Let's see if by working all together, we can analyze this painting. So, what's the title of this work of art? Anybody?
We were discussing about
Could you use the microphone, please? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, we have to analyze the Villa of the Mysteries. It's a um, an art piece of art of Pompeii villagers. It is a known artist that painted it, and the style of the painting is an ancient Roman painting. It was for public viewing because it was drawn in a mural in the town, and the most common interpretation of the images is a singing of an initiation of a woman into a special cult of Dionysus. It was like a god, and it required an specific rites to become a member of the cult.
Okay, who was this Dionysius?
It was a Roman god.
The god of what? Of wine and parties. So
Yes.
very, very nice god, you know. Very appropriate. Okay, can anybody tell me what's the general condition of this mural nowadays? The general condition, is it in good state? Is it open to the public? Can you go, if you go to Naples, into Pompeii, could you see it?
Actually, this masterpiece consists of 10 scenes, so it's a very large painting, and people can go and see it. We were discussing with the professor, and he told us that Pompeii actually it's kind of a museum, so everybody can go, and people can go and see this masterpiece if they want. So.
Okay, what's the subject matter? Tell me. What do you see when you look at the painting? And for this, you don't need to know. You may do a little bit of research, but what can you figure out? I mean, remember, a painting or an artwork it's like a two-way street. Okay, one thing is what the creator intended it to be, and the other thing is what the spectator gets of the painting, what he or she can figure out of this work. In this case, we don't even know who created it. We don't know who the painter was. We don't even know if it's actually what we think it is. So whatever you make out, whatever you think it is, it's a very good exercise. So tell me, what's the subject matter according to you guys of this painting? What do you make of it? What do you see? Describe it to me.
Okay, well, what we saw there is, or what we see there, it's like suffering because of the woman which is in the lap of her nurse. That's what we investigated, but that's what we see at the beginning. We were all discussing about it, and the colors in the painting gives like that intense feelings that made us feel like, yes, she's suffering, so we feel like sad for her.
Also, the shadows, they intend like something like pain. And actually, I thought that the girl there, that the behind of the girl who has something in her arm.
The one in the foreground or the one in the background?
In the background, the girl in the background. I thought she was like an evil person. I don't know.
An evil person?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know, it looks like mysterious. She's like kind of doing something with that thing. I don't know if some girls thought that it was like an, ¿cómo se dice flecha? Arrow, like an arrow, yeah.
Okay, yeah, she actually looks kind of mysterious. I agree with you. I don't know if she's evil, but she's up to something, definitely.
And I thought we investigated, and that thing in the woman that is nude, like she's naked, it's like a lace. So it's
like a what, I'm sorry?
Lace.
A lace?
Yeah.
Ah, okay, yeah, I understand.
So it looks like torture.
Do you think she's torturing someone?
Yeah.
Do you agree all with that idea? Or do you have different conceptions of that? What do you think over there? Is she being tortured? Or is she torturing someone? Or is it something related to pain? You all guys, I mean, a lot of you were working on this. I saw you. So what do you make of this?
Well, in my opinion, I think that she's like dancing.
Yeah.
And the other woman is like with an instrument or something like that to represent the hard moment of the environment.
Yeah, she looks like she's kind of dancing, and that's kind of a musical instrument, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. I mean, that's your interpretation, and I respect it. It's a different way of looking at it, and it's very valid also, okay? But to me, it seems like a dancing girl. I don't know how...
So you have to think it's a ritual? Yes. So what's the occasion? You know, is it a coming of age of a woman into adulthood? I mean, what do you interpret as far as the ritual? Is it a ritual? They have no religion, so they can do this.
She gave me a cold stare. So if it's a ritual, what kind of ritual do you think it is? Is it all women? Guys, is it all women?
That's a good question. Is it only women in the painting?
Yes.
So you think there's one guy?
No guy.
Or an only? No. An only? If it's mostly women, is it a women-related rite of passage? Some sort of rite? So make your assumptions about what kind of rite do you think that is?
What's the occasion?
Anything to say about that?
We can see very defined her face, but maybe, well, I think she is young, so it could be like a transition between being like a girl and being a woman. It could be, and that's why she is so scared. It's something.
Which one? The one that's kneeling?
The one on the lap.
Okay. Maybe she's afraid they're gonna do something painful to her. Okay, if this is an only woman depiction, if it's a ceremony of only girls, what does it tell you about the woman's position back in Roman times? Can you make any deduction of that? I'm asking a question. I know it's not in the guide, so I just want you to think. Can we deduct something about the woman's position because of this painting particularly?
Okay. In my personal opinion, I think the woman had like a different role in Roman society, and they had like their own traditions and ceremonies, because men I think in that age, they were like they had like different values and different points of view about life, so they decided to divide their ceremonies and do it like in a way it was special only for women in that age. Yes.
Good. Yeah. I really don't know. I'm just making this question because I just figure it out. Yes.
Well, according with investigation, this is a ritual about the marriage. She is prepared for the marriage.
Who, the girl kneeling?
Yeah.
That's why she's so sad.
No, the girl. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just adding a little bit more of what she said originally. For what we found was that she was being prepared for the rituals of marriage. So part of it, I think, it was some kind of torture, some kind of sacrifice that she had to do. And the woman that she's lying on appears to be a nurse, according to the investigations. And the one naked, I believe she's part of the ritual as far as music and joy. That's why of the chiming she's doing with her hands.
Mm-hmm. Very good question.
It has to be the matriarch at the bottom. But what we found, it seems like that she's the one in charge of the rituals, and she's the one who's taken her to the stages of it.
She's the one in charge, right? You can tell that only by looking at the painting. I mean, you can make a very educated guess that woman over there is the one in charge, right? The most powerful figure in the painting, right?
No, I'd say the same.
The woman that is in the background, she has dark clothes, so that is really my eyes lead to her.
Okay. Now, a couple of questions. If you had the author, the painter of that masterpiece right here, sitting in that chair, what would you ask him? That we're assuming. I mean, maybe he doesn't know. Would you ask him anything about the painting, for instance? Why is she so sad, for instance? Good. That's a very interesting question. How do you feel when you look at it? I'm sorry, I'll give you the microphone in just a minute. How do you feel when you look at it?
Sorry, microphone, please.
If you turn it on, it's better. It works better. I'm sorry.
I think it's pain and misery. I don't know what happened in the picture, but I think, I don't know. I asked him or her, I don't know, how do you feel when you made or paint the painting?
Good. But so you feel sad when you look at it?
Yes.
It makes you feel sad.
Yes.
It makes you feel worried about the poor little woman over there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I will ask why this painting is like so huge because
How huge is it?
yeah, and I'll also why it's like describing a process because it is not only that part of the painting we have to analyze. It's like the complete painting. So why is he or she making this so big? Because he or she is telling a process or a tradition, or I don't know why he can't or describe it in just one piece. Why is so important to make this so huge?
Well, it was a big part of Roman society. Marriage evidently was very important back then. They have all of these rights and everything to celebrate it, so it was a big deal, right? So this tells us a lot about Roman society, at least we think. But it tells us a lot about women's role in society, how they had their own space, their own rituals, their own ceremonies, in which they were allowed to create this ceremony, this procession, if you want to, and in their own terms, which tells you they were in a much better position than women in other societies, okay? Not as ideal as we would like to, but a little bit better, maybe. If you were in there, how would you feel? You there are a man. As a man, how would you feel in there with all of those women?
Okay, I will feel like I'm not part of it because it's like about womanhood or whatever. And I think it's like what I'm doing here, but I will be like interested in learning how they feel and what are their opinions in the process and what's going on. I would like to find it out. Yes.
Okay. Wouldn't you feel intimidated in there?
A little bit more about the woman in the background.
I'll be afraid.
She's like crazy right there.
Scared.
So yes. And yes, I think
the only man in an only woman ceremony has to be a very scary experience for a man, I guess.
Not as scary, but like you're being in a different position, so it's like you have to be careful.
Yes, definitely.
Yes,
With
totally.
say,
So
right?
yes.
A girl, how would you feel if you were in that situation with them, celebrating that rite of marriage? I want a woman's opinion. Anybody? Could you use the microphone, please?
I got like a question about it because if they painted that in a very big room, was that so evident that women got that suffering when they were going to get married, or that was just about like a story of one specific woman? That's what makes me think.
That's good to know. That will be a good piece of information, right? I agree with you. But we'll have to try to assume that it is a general situation, not a particular situation, unless she was a member of the family, for instance, in that house, and something bad really happened to her. Well, that's a possibility.
Yes, and
nice observation.
was that like a museum for them, or was the place where they used to celebrate weddings? I don't know.
It was to decorate a house, right? What we call now the Villa of the Mysteries. Did anybody find out what the dimensions are of this mural?
We did it also, and it says 15 by 25 feet.
In meters?
In meters, I don't know.
I need a mathematician who makes the conversion. Feet.
Feet. 25.
Like 5 meters, more or less. So it's big enough. Now, do you like it? If you could buy it, will you buy it? Will you put it in your home? In the living room?
Okay, I appreciate it, but I prefer like different.
It's perfectly.
Yeah, it's
good
like.
If you don't like it, there's no problem.
Yes, I think it's like a really important piece of art and it makes parts of the history, and I appreciate it, but I don't feel like personally like attracted to it.
So you wouldn't put it in your bedroom, for instance?
No, at all. Yes.
Any other opinion?
Me?
Do you? Oh, yes. Please,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It is like part of history, so it will be like great to have it in somewhere in your house. But I think that I would like to have like painting about happiness. I don't know.
Okay.
Not thinking about this every time I go to living room or my bedroom or whatever. But it is a great paint. I think we have to appreciate every part of the human being, and this is part of it.
Yes, in the historical sense, yes, of course, it's very valuable. It's unique, and because it's very old, because it's from the Romans and all of that. Do you consider that to be good art? Again, if you saw this in a gallery and it was for sale, it's Black Friday in the gallery, and you can buy it for a really, really bargain, a very good price. Would you buy it and put it in your home? Nobody. Listen, don't feel guilty. It's perfectly fine not to like something. You are not obligated. You are not forced to like everything I show you here in this class, okay? That's the idea. Okay, would you like to agree anything else? Bernal, do you have any other questions?
No, I just want to know if the audience, if you have something interesting that hasn't been mentioned yet, that you want to share it, because I know a lot of people have very fascinating ideas, although most of you picked the other one for some reason.
Yes.
So perhaps you can start next class, Mauricio, with selecting another group that can start off just like we did today. You want to do that?
Yes, with the other one, with the Greek one.
So we don't miss the opportunity. But anybody has anything to add to it, to close ideas? A really brilliant idea to close the day. No pressure.
I was walking around while you were working, and most of you were having really good conversations and really were coming up with a very good ideas. So don't be afraid if you have anything you'd like to comment. I mean,
so let me ask you a question then. In terms of modern life, rites of passage, marriage, childhood, adolescence, what rituals do we have today that you think resemble something like that? Do we have anything today that is something like that? In our culture today, something that we say, well, that's part of human nature thing because we hold on to that. Any rite that we have that you say, a rite that is mostly for women, that leads to something painful, perhaps? I don't know. Can you think of something?
It's nothing as profound as that, but when you guys were like, many of the people that researched the art were describing it, I was thinking of a bachelor, despedida soltero. They say, yeah, because they say like this is something to prepare the despedida soltero, like what you do. Yeah, the men. Oh, also the woman. I mean, nowadays both of them have it. So the groom. Bachelor, okay. Oh, okay, interesting. Okay. So you see, like in this picture, like this naked woman, like the guy is sitting. I mean, that's what came into mind. Like, if you could relate it to nowadays, I don't know. It's not so profound, but
So you're saying that maybe she's a stripper that was hired for the party?
Who knows? I mean, that was popular in Roman, right? And, I don't think that she was a stripper, but if it's the god of wine and party, I mean,
who knows?
Who knows?
We all assume that it's a very solemn scene. How do we know that? How do we know that it was not created for fun? I mean, maybe this was the guys' room where they met, the men's cave. Who knows?
Yeah, you see the woman and she has her hands raised. I mean, you raise your hands when you're happy, you are dancing, whatever. And the guy's like actually touching her head. I mean, like the girl's head. Like,
like, okay. Maybe she just had too much to drink. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Okay. If you don't have any other, listen, thank you very much for your participation, for being a fair play. And for you guys too, thank you very much. You were wonderful tonight. Thank you.